Volumio made a name for itself with beautifully designed streamers. Now they're taking on the DAC world with the Preciso. Dual mono architecture, premium parts and a sub-$1,000 price tag. Sounds ambitious. But can it actually deliver true audiophile performance without the usual compromises? Let's find out. Volumio, the Italian brand behind streaming favorites like the Primo and Rivo, is no stranger to high-end digital audio. But with the new Preciso, they've stepped into a more competitive space, the standalone DAC market. At $899, this is Volumio's first attempt at a full-featured DAC that doesn't just play the part, but could actually shake up the mid-range audiophile category. The idea is simple: high-end sound, elegant design and versatile integration, all without paying boutique prices. In this review we'll take a deep dive into its build, its features, how it performs in a real system and whether it's the right fit for your setup. The Preciso makes a strong first impression. Built in Florence, the aluminum chassis has a tactile minimalist appeal. A subtle piece of hi-fi gear that doesn't scream for attention, but rewards closer inspection. On the front you get a clean layout, a small but sharp 1.3-inch OLED display, two smooth rotary encoders for input and volume, and an IR sensor for remote operation. In contrast, the back is fully loaded. USB 2.0 Type B, optical and coaxial SPDIF, I2S over HDMI, balanced XLR and unbalanced RCA outputs. You also get 12-volt triggers ins and outs, which makes integration into more complex setups refreshingly easy. Now let's talk accessories for a moment, because Volumio actually went the extra mile here. The included switching power supply isn't just your average Walmart. It comes with a range of plug adapters to match international sockets. Whether you're in Sydney, London or New York, you're covered. The USB cable that comes in the box is also worth noting. It's robust, well insulated and looks like it was selected with care. No corners cut here. To give the Preciso a fair test, this is exactly the cable I'll be using to link it with the Volumio Rivo Plus streamer during this review. Later we'll also test how the USB input compares to the I2S connection via HDMI, an option you rarely find at this price point. At the heart of the Preciso is a dual mono architecture featuring two ESS ES9039 Q2M Sabre DACs. Each DAC chip is dedicated to its own channel in a mirrored, electrically isolated layout. This drastically reduces crosstalk and opens up the potential for cleaner stereo separation, greater depth and precision imaging. The DACs are clocked by a single high-precision MEMS oscillator which governs both channels and keeps time alignment sharp. Power regulation is also independent between analog and digital paths, a big deal for noise reduction and detail preservation. On the analog side, the signal path benefits from Texas Instruments OA1612A op-amps and COG film capacitors, chosen for stability and low distortion. The USB input is handled by a dedicated asynchronous controller, not an off-the-shelf solution, which minimizes jitter and ensures bit-perfect playback. The volume control is handled in hardware, not digital attenuation, with precise 0.5 dB steps, so you can use the Preciso as a preamp into a power amplifier without signal degradation. It supports PCM up to 32-bit 768 kHz and DSD 512, making it fully compatible with just about any high-res file you throw at it. Now let's get into the listening experience, and for this I used a carefully matched system. My source device was the Volumio Rivo Plus, powered by the Linneo 5 linear power supply, feeding into the Preciso via both USB and I2S connections. The DAC ran into a Yamaha AS2200 integrated amplifier driving Dynaudio Evoke 20 speakers. Interconnects and speaker cables were SUPRA with the exception of the USB cable, which was the included one from Volumio. I spent several evenings with this setup exploring different genres. Here's what stood out, illustrated through 3 reference tracks that highlight different areas of performance. First, So What by Miles Davis. This track's spaciousness and instrument placement are legendary, and the Preciso absolutely delivered. The trumpet had a vivid, almost holographic presence, while the cymbals had a natural shimmer and decay. You could feel the room around the performers, not artificially enhanced, but simply revealed through clarity and channel separation. The bass moved through the mix with just the right balance of warmth and detail. This track showed the DAC's ability to render a believable 3D soundstage, one of the hallmarks of a well-executed dual mono design. Next, Royals by Lord. This track demands control over dynamics and sub-bass. Here the Preciso showcased excellent timing and tonal neutrality. Lord's voice was centered and articulate, with a smooth upper mid-range that avoided sibilance. The bass, deep, precise, but never overpowering, was especially well handled. Layered backing vocals and synthetic textures were all given room to breathe, without smearing or collapse under pressure. Third, Reckoner by Radiohead. This one's always a stress test. Complex textures, reverb trails and a dreamy mix that can sound congested on lesser gear. The Preciso passed with flying colors. You could hear every percussion detail, every echo of Tom York's voice floating in the background. The DAC handled complexity with composure, never losing its grip on dynamics or timing. The sense of rhythmic momentum, often overlooked in DAC reviews, was very much intact. To test the difference between USB and I2S, I used One Day I'll Fly Away by Randy Crawford. It's an emotionally rich performance with fine microdynamics and spacious room reverb, perfect for revealing subtle differences in source interface. Using the USB connection first, the sound was open and energetic. The dynamics had real impact. Her voice rose above the instruments with natural authority, and there was a sense of liveliness to the performance that kept me engaged. Bass was full-bodied and transients were punchy, without being overdone. The included USB cable held up admirably here. Switching to I2S, however, brought a shift in focus. Detail retrieval improved, background instruments became more clearly separated with a touch more transparency in the upper mids and highs. You hear more of the subtle inflections in Crawford's voice and the trailing echoes in the venue became easier to localize. The trade-off, the I2S connection felt slightly more restrained, a touch less physical energy in the low end, slightly more delicate in tone. So, which is better? I2S gives you more detail and precision, while USB feels a bit more dynamic and immediate. For critical listening, I2S might be the winner, but for casual enjoyment or rhythmic music, I could see many preferring the USB connection. The great news is you get both options and both sound excellent. Now let's look at some of the pros and cons, starting with the negatives. First off, there's no balanced headphone output, which may limit its appeal for headphone users building a balanced desktop rig. And second, although this is more of a consideration than a flaw, the Preciso's transparency means it will reflect the quality and character of your amp and speakers. So, careful system matching is important to avoid analytical or thin results. Now the good news, and there's a lot of it. The dual mono ESS architecture, the extensive connectivity including I2S, built-in gain control and premium internal components all add up to a DAC that not only performs at a high level, but also feels complete and thoughtfully executed. Its neutrality allows your music and your system to shine, and it's rare to find this level of execution under $1,000. In the end, the Volumio Preciso stands as a serious contender in the crowded world of mid-range DACs. It's elegant, versatile and technically impressive, but more importantly, it sounds musical, clean and confidently neutral. It doesn't impose its own character, instead it lets your recordings and your system do the talking. Paired with the Rivo or Rivo Plus, the synergy is clear, but even as a standalone unit, the Preciso offers remarkable value and earns a solid recommendation. It's proof that precision doesn't have to come with a luxury tax. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that bell so you won't miss any future reviews. Thanks for watching and happy listening.